So this question here asks us to translate this function 1 over x by plus 3. It then asks us to find the asymptotes, or the equations of the asymptotes, which we'll come to, and also to find some coordinates. Now, I would always start off a question like this with drawing the graph of the original function and then translating it. So if we were to draw this graph of 1 over x, marking our axes, remember the graph of 1 over x has a break. It's a reciprocal graph and it has a break at x equals 0. At x equals 0, so 1 divided by 0, if we substituted it in, remember 1 divided by 0 is undefined. If you put 1 divided by 0 in your calculator, you get an error, though it's an undefined, you cannot define it. So there's a break at x equals 0. So this function, this reciprocal function, it gets closer and closer to the y-axis and the x-axis, but it doesn't actually touch it, and it's a reflection. So it will look something like this. We want to translate this now, this function, by plus 3. And what this plus 3 does is it translates the curve by, in this case, 3 units parallel to the y-axis. Generally, remember, f of x, if y equals f of x plus a, then this will translate f of x by a units parallel to the y-axis. So it's going to move these two curves here, this entire graph, the entire function I should say, it's going to move it 3 units up the y-axis. So our new graph will, instead of approaching the x-axis, will now approach the line 3 units up the y-axis. I'm going to draw that in, and it will look the same, but it won't actually touch this line here. It will get very, very close to it, but it won't actually touch it. That's our definition of an asymptote. It will go on and on and on, but it won't actually touch that line there. And similarly here, will go on and on and on, but it won't actually touch the line. So this is what the graph of the translated graph looks like. So here, this axis here would be f of x, if we were using this terminology, and this would be x, or this we could call this y, because this could have y equals 1 over x plus 3. Okay, so what are our equations of the asymptotes? Well, we've got one equation here, which is this line, which is y equals 3, and we've got one asymptote here, which is the line x equals 0. So our asymptotes are y equals 3 and x equals 0. Okay, part B to this then asks us to find the coordinates of the point where y equals f of x plus 3 crosses a coordinate axis. Let's have a look back at the graph. Where does it cross a coordinate axis? The only coordinate axis it crosses is the x-axis, and it crosses it at this point here. And at that point there, what do we know? Well, we know actually that y equals 0 here. It will be something 0. It goes up 0 here. So here we know that y equals 0. Our function is f of x equals 1 over x plus 3, or y equals 1 over x plus 3. So if our function is y equals 1 over x plus 3, and we know that y equals 0, then we would have 0 equals 1 over x plus 3, and we would then rearrange that. Minus 3 equals 1 over x, so therefore bringing that up we have minus 3x equals 1, so therefore x equals 1 over minus 3, or minus a third. So at this point here we've got minus a third, 0, or y value is 0, and this is where it crosses the coordinate axis. And if we just wanted to check that and just make sure it makes sense, yes it does. This could quite easily be x equals minus a third. So there's our answer to part B.